Hello everyone. It's been a minute. I This is the second time filming these videos, so I hope everything goes right. Sorry if my voice sounds a bit weird. I just came back from camping and there was a lot of singing. So yeah, there's that. Yeah, I first recorded this in a very cozy coffee shop in here in the city. But unfortunately, my earphones are pretty bad, like the microphone, so can't hear anything. So here we go again. Um, this video is a bit of a chill uh, tag, which is called a reluctant tag, and I was tagged to do this by the channel Catherine. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. So thank you so much, Catherine, for tagging me. This is actually my first time being tagged, so it's kind of fun. Um, I actually don't know anyone, so I don't know who to tag, but I hope um, to hear your answers down in the comments below. So let's just get into it. Like this tag, I think is mostly focused on books that you're reluctant, obviously, to try for whatever reason. So there's a couple of questions, and yeah, I just want to get into it. So let's see. The first one is, what is a soft DNF? And for me, that is going to be a book that I have here right behind me, which is The Secret Life of Trees. And this is a book that I was given as a gift, and it's in Swedish. And I think it was very interesting, but the language was very, very hard. It has a lot of technical terms about like tree species and biological things. And so it was just a bit too hard when I started reading it. I think I read about half of it, but I felt like I wasn't enjoying it so much because it was just a struggle to push through. So I just closed off the NF. I will get back to it. I think I'll just restart it, but it was super interesting, talking about very interesting ideas or research that has been done and things that are discovered about trees, like how they communicate or the relationship with fungi. So super cool. I hope to get back to it soon. The next one is a book by an author that you didn't like, and I think this one is meant to be like uh, you didn't like the author when you first read a book by them, but there's these other books that's coming out that sounds really exciting, and I don't really have an answer for this. So let's just get to the next one, which is a recent release that you don't know when you're gonna read, and that for me has to be Blood Over Bright Haven by Emil Wang. And this book has just taken over booktube, at least my corner of it, and that is really exciting because I love to see um, independent authors making it. And yeah, this book I think centers around a woman that is the first woman to be accepted into this organization that does research, and I think it's also magical. And so there's a lot of fighting against the system and like patriarchy in this book. And I think her assistant comes from an ethnical tribe in this land that is also oppressed. So there's colonization themes here, and I think they together need to work together to do something. Or again, I think there's a lot of like both fighting the system through like the misogyny that she probably faces and the ethnical persecution that he faces. And I think there is some dark academia, some like contest, I think I've heard. But it just sounds really cool, and I've never read anything else by this author, and I eventually want to get to the Sword of Kaigen by Emil Wang, but that's a recent one. I just don't know when I will pick it up because it's unavailable in like all libraries. Everyone just wants to read this right now, so we'll have to wait. The next one is a book that you want to read, but the cover is ugly, and I think there's no better book to pick for this than Malasan books, because they're like mass printing paperbacks, whatever. Covers are just ugly as hell. I need to say that. Like, they're so ugly, and particularly the book that I need to read next has to be the worst of them all. It's just ugly. It's really ugly. Yeah, and I think it's kind of funny that it fit perfectly. And that is a book I need to read this year. That's Told the Hounds, by the way. I didn't even say the name, by Steven Erickson. And I'm obviously not reluctant because of the cover, but it is very ugly. The next one is a classical a classic book that you're just not interested in like picking up, but you are obviously wanting to read. And for that, I would say I, Robot, which is a short story collection by Isaac Asimov. And I mean, everyone knows about this. I just don't know like when I will get to it. I think there are just other things that feel more exciting to me. Um, I mean, it's pretty short, so I feel like I should be able to read it like very quickly. But I am thinking about doing a video project reading a couple of like old sci-fi or classic sci-fi. So I think I'm saving it for them. Um, but I just don't have anything else against this besides the fact that I have other things to to read and prioritize. But I do really like what I've read of Asimov. I've read Foundation trilogy and The Last Question, which is almost basically my favorite short story. It's amazing. So shout out to that. Yeah, the next one is a book that is big and intimidating, and I think for these I have The Grace of Kings by Ken Liu. It's the first book in the Dandelion Dynasty, and I think I mean it's not that it's that chunky. I've read books in the same kind of ball field size, but ballpark. Um, but people have discussed this book as being quite slow and a bit like a history book, or the way that it's written. I don't know. I think people describe this or like compare this to the Fire and Blood by Martin. So I'm still really excited to pick up this Dandelion Dynasty series by Ken Liu, but just the fact that I think this is going to be a slower one, um, when I also have a bunch of other slow or like chunky fantasy sci-fi books that I want to prioritize, I think is what's I think I just need to wait until I read a couple other things that I have had in my TBR for a longer time before I get to it. But I mean, it is chunky, so it fits the prompt. um, the next one is a book that is very hyped, and you're reluctant to read because it's hyped, or I guess you feel you need to read because it's hyped. And for that, I will point to the Three Body Problem by Cixin Liu Cixin. I don't know how to pronounce that. Yeah, I mean, you've probably heard about these books. They are a first contact with alien story, and I know that the sci-fi elements are very crazy, very like mind-blowing. I have no idea. I want to go blind as possible into this story because I think it has the potential to be a favorite of mine. I hope I'm not like overhyping it, but it's definitely a hyped story. So I think it fits the prompt. And yeah, I think first contact with aliens is one of my favorite sci-fi tropes. I think I can think of, for instance, the movie Arrival, one of my favorite movies of all time. Um, but just in general, the interaction between humans and other species, I think it's fascinating. Obviously, there are a lot of sociological things that go into it that I think can be cool. But for me, I think the linguistic element, which I know this is very specific, but just the part about like actually communicating between species that are completely different and who think differently, for some reason, just like really excites me or like fascinates me. So that's a Three Body Problem. I think the trilogy is called like Remembers of the Earth, I want to say. So that's that. Let's see. The next one is a book that I need to be in a specific mood to read, and that is the what's the sequel called? Moon Witch Spider King, and it's a sequel to the Black Leopard Red Wolf. um, and I think the trilogy is called Dark Star Trilogy by Marlon James. And I just know this book is super violent, super heavy. It has a lot of, at least the first one had a lot of SA scenes and discrimination, and it's hard. It's a really tough book to read, and I think I need to be in the right mood to be able to tolerate all that and be able to read through it, because it's a big book and it has a lot of it. So yeah, I think I just need to wait for the right moment. But I also know I need to read Malasan, and that is also quite depressing. So I don't want to be reading like heavy, long, depressing books back to back. So I think after reading 12 the Hounds, I will need to read a couple of fluffy things or like happier things, and then eventually I will get to Moonwitch Spider King. But the first book, Black Leopard Red Wolf, I'm sorry, that is a mouthful, was one of my favorite books, if not my favorite book of last year. It's a fantasy epic story heavily inspired in African mythology, and it's a story that feels very classical because it has like quest elements. It has all of these magical creatures. You have like this party of individuals that are put together to basically get somewhere, or like in this case take um, a kid somewhere, and you start like yeah unraveling like who this kid is and like the story behind the main character, at least from the first book, which is a tracker that has this special skill for like tracking people, and he is commissioned or like to find a kid. um, and then you start like unpacking all of that, and it's a story about violence, as I said. Like it has a lot to do with that, but there is so much to unpack. I don't know. I don't want to say so much because I think it's best to go into it blind, and especially because the main character is very unreliable. I think it's really cool to start kind of piecing for yourself how things kind of are put together, and even just the chronology of the story and why the character is telling his story. I don't know. I think it's fascinating, and I know the second book is told through the perspective of another character, and it obviously has other parts of the story, so it's not just the same story told through someone else's POV, but it has a bit of that, which I think sounds fascinating. But yeah, I spent too much time on that. Then the next one is a book that you are not sure you want to read because you're not sure if you want to continue the series. And for me, that is the sequel to the House by the Cerulean Sea by Tijen Klun. I don't know what the second one is called, like somewhere. I don't know. I'm blanking. But yeah, I don't have anything against this second book. I just feel like the first one didn't need a follow up. This is also a very popular book, so I'm sure you've heard of it. But in case you haven't, this is a magical story, or like a fantasy story with very low kind of magical elements, about a person that works for this government institution that oversees magical orphanages. And so he's in charge with going to these places and talking with the kids and evaluating if they are like living in good conditions. And I think he might also just like send kids into these places. I don't exactly know what his like job is, but basically the story follows him when he's sent to this like place that is in a coastal town. I think the actual house is on an island, where a very secluded man with his own secrets is overseeing or like taking care of five magical kids. And so it's a story about how he gets to this orphanage and how he bonds with these kids. So it has found family. It's super sweet, super cute, and I loved it. Like I think the first book was amazing, very like warm and cozy. Everything is kind of good, even though I mean there are like challenges and obstacles, and it has a like exciting climax. I will say that like it's a very comforting read, and I think back then people described it as a warm hug, and I can see that. So yeah, I nothing against the second book. I just don't know like if we needed a continuation and where the story might go. But again, like the characters, I think were very fun to follow, and especially these like found family that we get to see throughout the first book, and especially there's this kid. Everyone has their favorite, and most of them have. Um, I don't think this is a spoiler, but one of the kids is supposed to be like the Antichrist, and he's very cute, and very funny, like Lucifer. And I think everyone loves this kid, which fair enough. But for me, the best kid is now I'm blanking on the name, but this it's like a jelly, like a blob kid, and he wants to be a bellboy. Like his dream in life is just to be like a bellboy and carry people's luggage into their rooms, and I think he was the most adorable thing. So I might honestly just read it because of him. He's not like the main kid. Um, Anyways, he was cool. Um, then the next one is a book that has been a long time in my TBR, and that is the what's it called? Senlin Ascents, which is the first book in the Books of Babel series by Josiah Bancroft. And this is a 4 book series following Senlin, I assume, which is a man that I think just got married uh, to his wife, and I think they go on vacation or on like honeymoon to this Tower of Babel, which, as I understand, is obviously a tower, and I think every tower is kind of its own city with different like politics and things that are happening. And I think at the start of the story of the first one, the wife disappears, which is a trope that I don't like. This woman in the fridge trope, which sets kind of the sets like starts the journey of Senlin to find his wife. So I mean the inciting incident is definitely not very interesting, but I've heard really good things about this. I think the last book wasn't like liked as much, or it has a bit more mixed reviews. I don't know, but just the whole like setting sounds amazing, and the books have these amazing covers with like a tower and either like a person or like a hand inside. They have like this steampunky vibe that I don't know. I think the description just sounds really fascinating, and I've heard the prose is also really good. So that has been probably like 5 years, honestly. Now that I've read Cloud Cuckoo Land, this might be one of my oldest books in my physical TBR. So it's time. It's time. Uh, when we'll get to it, who knows? But that's why we're here. Uh, the next one is a book whose genre is outside my comfort zone, and I wouldn't say that horror is like super far out of my comfort zone, but I definitely don't read as much of it as you might think, or as maybe I might say. Like, I literally don't read that much horror. And for this, found two in the library that I think could be fun. The first one is called the My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones, who is an indigenous author from the United States that I've been hearing a lot of positive things about. I think he also has a book called The Good Indians, The Good Old Indians, The Only Good Indians. That also sounds really interesting. I think this is more of a slasher book, and it follows, and it's a trilogy, so I assume it follows like the same town. Uh, I actually don't know so much about this, but again, I don't really read slashers. And then the next one is a book that you own but you might never read, and I hope this never comes true, but I do have this bind up of H.G. Wells' The Time Machine and The Invisible Man. And yeah, again, I similar to iRobot, I just don't feel super excited to pick it up right now. I think there's so many other things that I want to read at the moment, and classic sci-fi is just not like picking up my interest right now. But again, as I said, I have this idea of reading some classical sci-fis, so I think I might just binge those three together. Um, and yeah, I actually don't even know what The Time Machine is about, obviously, other than that there's a time machine, or The Invisible Man. But I do think reading H.G. Wells could be interesting. I've never read anything by him. I know he did the War of the Worlds. Um, so I think if anything, for like curiosity or for academic purposes, let's say, it would be just interesting to have read something by him, and then see if I continue with the second one that I have of his or not. I hope that I find them amazing, but with like classic sci-fi, it can always be a bit dry. So I think that's why I'm a bit reluctant. Um, so that is like from my bookshelf, the book that I think is like less likely that I ever read. But obviously, I think eventually I will just give it a try and donate it if I don't like it. But just like never read, like I don't want that. um, Now, the next one is a book that you're reading as an obligation to someone, and that is the book that I got from Tobias from Christmas last year. Um, Minesteatern, by Tidbeck. What's her first name? Karin Tidbeck. And I mean, it's not that I'm reading it as an obligation. I'm actually very excited to pick it up. But it fits the prompt because I do want to prioritize it because it was his gift. And this is a kind of portal world fantasy where you have, I mean, I don't know so much about it other than you have this pocket world or like parallel fantasy world, which I think has like a dark twist to it. I think there might be like a circus or maybe a theater, as the name suggests, and you have like characters that are trying to escape this world, as I understand, and somehow they get connected, or like I don't know how like the human world gets related to this story, uh, but it sounds cool. It sounds fun, and I am ready to read more Swedish literature. And the author is Swedish, so I think it's gonna be cool to read that. And yeah, um, and then the next one, and this is actually the last one, is a book that had negative reviews, and like negative reviews that made you less excited to pick it up, and that is going to be The Shadow of the Gods by John Wynne. And this is the first book in the Bloodsworn trilogy, I think it's called, which is a Nordic inspired epic fantasy story. I do like Nordic mythology quite a bit, so these books sounded very cool just from the get go. I know John Wynne writes really good combat. I've never read anything by him. I think his other trilogy, what's it called? Malice is the first one. I've never really been interested in that because I think it has like a very classical, like good versus evil feel with like angels and demons, and that's just never really been my thing. But when he wrote this Nordic inspired world, that piqued my interest much more. And the covers, come on, like everyone talks about the covers, but they are amazing. Like I'm just gonna show some close-ups, but the covers are amazing. Come on. I do have the first one of the books digitally, but yeah, I was going to read actually last year for the Reddit bingo, but I just never had time for it. And I do know the third book didn't have like the best reception, but I think it's mostly that people love his first trilogy or like his first four-book series more. So I actually don't know if people are actually against or like had a bad experience with the third book, or is it just that in comparison with what they had read of John Wynne, which I think is a very well loved author, they just liked his previous work more. So I don't know. Like I've never read anything by him, so I think this could be a big hit. And yeah, I think it's gonna be like very like gritty, and I think I just want to see like why everyone loves this author and his combat. I usually struggle with like written combat, um, so I'm just interested to see like how he writes it. So yeah, that's basically it. I'm happy that I made it through the whole list, and yeah, thank you, Catherine, for tagging me in this video. I think that was so fun. And yeah, I will link your channel down below so that everyone here can check it out. And yeah, have a great rest of your week and have a great day. Bye bye.